Anything else?
So John, right now they've started the recording. To those who are in the process of signing on, we're waiting for the attendees to fall into place, and we'll get started in just a minute or two.
Okay. So I can't talk to Bob Wynn because it's recorded.
You can say hi.
Hey, Bob, no problem. I'm joking.
Talk to you anyway, John.
I know you will. I know you would. Thank you.
Gotta love you, John.
Thanks, Bob.
How do you do this?
No, it's like, am I doing it right? I don't know.
No, you're worse than I am.
No. I'm like this. And I have another finger I can do I won't do. But I like this one. This one I like.
Hey, Jerry, I don't see Scott under the attendee list. Unless his last three digits are 880.
No, I mean, unless he's calling from a different number, but yeah, I don't see him.
He was traveling and he said he was calling in. So let me just.
Yes, I just spoke to Scott as well. He was just trying to connect to the Wi-Fi and get dialed in, but I think he was on a ferry, so he might be a moment.
Okay. Jerry, if you can try to connect with him to see if he can sign on, but I'm going to get things started if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome to the special joint meeting of the Select Board and the Budget Review Committee. I have that it is 2:07 p.m. and it is Monday, September 14th. I would like to show that roll call shows that all Select Board members are in attendance. Jerry, do you want to do roll call for the Budget Review Committee?
Currently, we're missing one regular meeting member. I guess we would, at this point, we would move up Carol Aaron into a regular voting position.
Okay.
And we would all be in attendance.
Thank you. And your other alternate is not in attendance as well. We're not expecting her, is my understanding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And we are expecting Scott to join us at some point. So I would assume that once he joins, Carol, you'll take a step back. Does that make sense? Okay. So first thing on our agenda this afternoon is 2.0 public comment on agenda items only. The Select Board and the Budget Review Committee welcomes public comments and questions about agenda items only for this special meeting. We ask that people keep your comments brief and to the point, 3 minutes, as well as that your comments be respectful of the community we aspire. Please begin your comments by stating your name and your affiliation with Ogunquit, such as resident, taxpayer, voter, business owner, etc., or the town, or state the town which you are from. If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand feature.
All right, if we're ready, Heath, we have one hand raised a while.
Great.
Peter, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Peter.
Okay, Peter Kahn, resident voter, all the above. Just have a quick question. The note to the agenda for today's meeting states that the Budget Review Committee may reconsider some of its earlier votes due to new information. My question is, what is the new information and where can it be found?
Peter, you had emailed the Select Board about this, and all the information that's being considered is in the packet, with the exception of the town manager emailed the Select Board and the Budget Review Committee some suggested language for the warrant article in for purchasing the land or the contribution for purchasing the land that our town attorney is recommending. Pat, would you like to add anything further?
No,
Pat,
Mr.
our
Chair.
town manager, I should say, Pat Finnegan.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So do I take it then that there are 2 pieces of information that are new? Or is there more than that?
I don't want to say if there's 2 or 3, I'm not exactly sure. We're going to be discussing what's in the packet.
Okay, so how does the public know what the new information is? Can somebody during the meeting tell the public what the new information is?
So Peter, what I'll say is we are discussing the information that is in the packet with the exception of just a few minutes ago, the town manager was able to email suggested language from our town attorney's office regarding the warrant article for the purchase or the contribution to purchase the land in collaboration with the Great Works Trust, Land Trust. And certainly if I will, as we're discussing each item, if there are things that I think would be relevantly new information that is not in the packet, I will open things up for public comment before any vote is taken. Thank you.
Tim Smith, you can unmute.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tim Smith. I'm one of the project managers on the Old Boston Land Project. And my first quick question was will this be my only opportunity to provide information on this project, or will there be an opportunity later in the meeting?
Tim, we have you on under 3.1A.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Looks like that's it for raised hands.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to 3.0, which is a consideration of the town warrant articles for our town meeting on November 3rd. First up is 3.1 capital improvement budget articles. And we're going to start with letter A, which is the conservation land acquisition. The Great Works Regional Land Trust has been working with the town and is looking for a contribution from the town of Ogunquit for $300,000. With that, if Tin is still on, I want to give him an opportunity to just provide a brief overview. Tin, I want to be mindful that of time. So all of us here should have read the information in the packet. So if you can keep your comments brief, and then I'll certainly open up if any select board members or budget review committee members have any questions for you.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, again, my name is Tim Smith. I'm a board member and one of the project managers for this project. The Great Works Regional Land Trust serves 6 towns. We provide services for conservation services for landowners and communities. We've been around for 35 years now. We have our office in Beach Plum Farm at Ogunquit. We've done 131 projects, of which we own 75 of those and manage about 2,500 acres. All total, we've protected about 7,000 acres. This opportunity, the Old Boston land, has been one of our projects for several years now. It has taken a while to get the landowners to make an agreement on a purchase and sales agreement. That took about 2.5 years. It's a big project. We know it's a big project. We know this is a big ask. And that's why we've went out and secured a grant from the Maine Natural Resource Conservation Program. That was an $860,000 grant we got to help with this project. It's a total cost of about $1.2 million. We are asking the town to participate with $300,000, and we cannot complete this project without that contribution because there simply is no other sources of funds around. As you know, it's 157 acres It's got about 2,000 acres, 2,000 feet of frontage on the Ogunquit River, which is what attracted the funding from the Maine Natural Resource Conservation Program. It also has 2,800 feet of road frontage. I think this is the biggest parcel, single parcel and a single ownership in Ogunquit. This is not just a project of local significance. The Maine Coast Heritage Trust dedicated one of its top Southern Maine land conservation people to this project, Keith Fletcher. This has been a focus, high priority for the Maine Mount Aid to the Sea Conservation Initiative. Certainly with the high resource value here, not only mainly for water quality, but also it is contingent and abuts the Hilton Wind Farm. And that connects with up to 6,000 acres of already protected land. So this is a contiguous, you'll be able to walk contiguously from this property all the way to the York River once trails get put in. Public access will be a big part of this plan for this land. There'll be no hunt. There will be hunting on the property. There'll be no tree harvesting or anything. It'll be more forever wild to protect the water quality. But public access and hunting will be allowed, and we've talked about that, and we're certainly willing to guarantee that with an agreement with the town of South Berwick. Of Ogunquit. This opportunity will not come up again, and I think that's one of the things we've been struggling with. We know it's a difficult time budget-wise in Ogunquit, but this will not come up again. We have a purchase and sales agreement. Like I said, it took a while to negotiate. We have to meet those deadlines. The family was, it's a family, it's not an individual. They will likely, if we are not able to meet the project deadlines, we suspect that they will put the land back on the market because the market, we believe, has gone up in the 14 months since we did this appraisal. And with that, I'll just open it up to questions.
Thank you, Tim. I'll start off with just two things. The Budget Review Committee, my understanding, and Jerry, please feel free to chime in. When you took a vote on this, there was the motion included ensuring that the recreational uses would be guaranteed to the town of Ogunquit and to the town of Ogunquit residents, including fishing, hiking, hunting, etc. So that I believe is something that while the select board hasn't weighed in on that and certainly can choose to weigh in, I believe that's the direction we're moving in. The second thing that has been discussed, and the town manager and I have been in touch with Mary Costigan, our town attorney, as well as had some conversations with the land trust on, is ensuring that if the land trust goes defunct for one reason or another, that the town of Ogunquit could have first, I'll just word it this way, first right of refusal, and or that it would be guaranteed that the land would go to another land trust or like organization, and that the easements would still fall into place for the recreational use. My understanding, Tim, is those are things that the land trust has communicated with your other funder, and everyone seems to be on the same page that when it comes time to wording the deed and proper easements, that's the direction we're moving in. And on your side, there's an agreement that either the land, if for some reason the Great Works Regional Land Trust goes defunct, the land would come to the town of Ogunquit as one option, and another organization would need to place an easement, like another land trust would need to place a recreational easement on it moving forward. Or option two is that the land go to another land trust like organization, and the town of Ogunquit would continue to maintain the recreational use easement.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and those things were highlighted in your letter to us, memo that is in our packet dated 9/12/2020. So with that, are there any questions from select board members? We'll start with select board members. Select member Daley.
So Tim, first of all, this is a great project. From what I know, I need no more, but it's a great project. But you mentioned this project's been in the business in the works for 2.5 years. That's correct, right?
Yes.
So why is the select board of Ogunquit, who cares tremendously about this project, who cares about conservation land, who has proven they care about conservation land, why we learned about this for the first time in the last 30 days? If this has been a 2.5-year project, why is the conservation committee of Ogunquit not telling us about this earlier? We want to do the right thing. We want to be partners with you guys. But to hear about this at the last minute is not acceptable. You know, it's a great project. It's unacceptable. We learned about this the last 30 days after a 2.5-year project.
No.
So can you share
Well-
why it took so long?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you that first, when we're negotiating with a private buyer, those have to be sort of, the buyers do not want that. The sellers do not want that around town. So we had to secure that. And when we finally did that, for $1.2 million, we didn't think that was the time to come before the town and ask for that amount of money. Because we didn't think the town would go for putting up that much money. So we said, well, let's find out if we can get a grant for it. And we did that last fall, a year from now. We heard about that grant in the December. We got the $860,000 award. We started talking with the town of Ogunquit then. We did a presentation to the selectmen in March. And we had a public hearing and did the selectmen. So we did a little bit of that. It has been a little bit quiet because we still need to raise some money, even with the town's contribution. But we didn't want to get a lot of publicity and a lot of hopes up until we knew this was going to work and going to go forward. And again, COVID-19 just kind of shifted things around. It made, we had been very confident the town would be supportive of this in March. But with COVID-19, we just weren't sure how it would work. And we didn't want to, go out and raise a lot of money and just have the town be the last person in. But we wanted to say, because we needed the town to be a partner and to make it work. And here we are. So, yeah, I accept your criticism, but we did the best job that we thought with the timeline. And of course, it got mixed up with the pandemic.
Tim, good answer. I appreciate that completely. I appreciate your honesty. My only second question, if you don't mind, Chair, and my follow-up question, my last question, I believe, is you guys have an appraisal done, 1.19 million. It's interesting. I don't trust the town's evaluation of land. They do a terrible job. My property is valued at 200,000, half acre. So you had this appraised at 1.19 million?
No, that's the project cost.
Okay.
The land, actual purchase price of the land is $1,030,000. And then we have to, yes, $1,030,000. And then we have to, since we're going to own this land in perpetuity, we set us up a stewardship fund for that property, both to manage the public access, because if you put in parking lot, you put in maintain trails, you're going to do that forever. We pay property taxes on that property, and property taxes are hard on an annual basis to raise money for. No one loves to donate for property taxes. So we try to set this all up right at the beginning. So because we're looking at a perpetuity, and that's a long time. So we want to make sure that we can own that land and it'll be available for the uses that we're promising forever.
So Tim, do you believe the 1.whatever million is a good number?
Yes.
You trust that number? You trust the appraiser? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Oh, yes. We did it. We actually did it twice. We did it. The family struggled with it a little bit, and so we had it updated. That's why it took so long to reach an agreement with the family.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Tim. Any other questions from select board members? Okay. Select member Perry?
May I make a comment instead of a question?
Do you have a question for Tim?
I do not.
Okay, right now we're just doing questions for Tim. Jerry, do you and/or any budget review committee members have questions for Tim?
I do not have a question for Tim. I do have a question.
Any other budget review questions have, any other budget review committee members have questions for Tim?
Not from my end.
Okay. Tim, if you can just hang on, because you never know
Sure.
what might come up in our discussion. So, select board members, this is the time for our discussion, but before doing so, because I think it might come up, because the public hasn't seen this, I want to read the proposed language that would be in the article, or what our town attorney, Mary Costigan, and her firm has recommended. So the article, at this point, the proposed language says, shall the town, one in parentheses, approve a contribution to the Great Works Land Regional Land Trust purchase of approximately 157 acres of undeveloped land known as the Old Boston Farm to ensure its conservation and public use. 2, authorize and delegate authority to the select board to negotiate and execute agreements that will give effect to the conservation and public use purposes. 3, appropriate up to $300,000 for such contribution. And 4, fund such appropriation by A, applying $75,000 from the town's land conservation reserve account, and by B, authorizing the treasurer and chairperson of the select board to issue general obligation securities of the town of Ogunquit, Maine, including temporary notes in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $225,000, and delegating to the treasurer and the chairperson of the select board the authority to fix the dates, maturities, interest rates, calls for redemption, refunding of said securities, places of payment, form, and other details of said securities, including execution and delivery of said securities on behalf of the town to provide for the sale thereof. So I want to acknowledge that's a lot of information, and today we're only approving this item to whether or not the select board and if the budget review committee wishes to revote. We are only approving what goes on the warrant article. The draft warrant article after today's meeting will be uploaded for tomorrow evening select board packet. So everyone will have a chance to see this language in writing and be able to comment on it before tomorrow evening's vote. But I just felt like there may be some thoughts as we move to taking a vote on this this afternoon regarding the proposed language of the article. Select Member Dolliver.
Will this land be kept open for public access in forever per the deed? And will the deed also have that language that you said, Mr. Chair, about if the land trust goes bankrupt or whatever, that the land will be, either first right of refusal to the town or the town's land? Will those two items be in the deed, or will they be in a separate document? Because there's a difference.
Yep. So what I understand, and Mary's here to help weigh in, as well as Tim can help weigh in. What is being talked about right now is that these things would actually be put in an easement, which is not necessarily in the deed, but it becomes part of the public record. And in the easement, those guarantees would be assured, including the recreational use forever and a day. And that if something were to happen to the Great Works Regional Land Trust, we would have language that would legally basically move the land back to the town of Ogunquit and or another land trust conservation organization.
So, Mr. Chair, it's an easement in the deed.
Oh, well, Mary, do you want to go ahead and talk?
Sure. So, this is it's a little complicated, which is why we're recommending language authorizing the select board to be able to negotiate the terms of the donation, because it is a contribution. We're not buying or selling property. The town is not. The town is donating money for another organization to buy the property. So we're not involved in the deed that of the seller. We're neither the seller nor the buyer. And this is also new information to me as well in terms of how it's going to work, but it sounds like there will be some sort of conservation easement on the property that the town will be involved in, as likely as holder of that easement. And those terms that you've discussed and possibly others will be in the easement that the town will hold.
Ken, would you like to add anything further to that? Ken, if you're talking, you are.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yes, the easement, an easement actually goes along with the deed. It gives the person who's granted it to certain rights. You know, you're familiar with a easement, right-of-way easement over a piece of property. So an easement is a good way to guarantee the town's rights here, because it'll give the town the rights of public access forever over this property, without having to worry about or have to do the active management of those rights. So it actually is an interest in the property. The town will be acquiring an interest in the property, and those interests are the right for the public to always go on this property for recreational purposes and hunting and fishing. So it actually, while it's not part of the deed, it becomes attached to that deed, period.
Thank you, Tim. Select Member Dolliver?
And just to double check, so Beach Plum Farm didn't have this easement? Because I know through the Beach Plum Farm project, some stuff happened where people weren't allowed to use property that Marcy had given to you guys. So I just want to be clear that nothing like that could happen on this land.
Am I still unmuted there?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Actually, there is an easement on the Beach Plum Farm property, and that easement is held by the York Land Trust, and that guarantees the public right to go on that property. So no, actually, it's a similar situation. The development rights were transferred to the York Land Trust. In that case, so Great Works, if it got in a tight spot or whatever, could never develop that Beach Plum Farm property, because actually the York Land Trust owns those rights to develop. So that's the way that easement worked in there. So no, there actually is an easement on that property. Not dissimilar from this one, and protecting the property. It's kind of like a double layer.
Select Member Dolliver?
Sorry, if there's an easement, and if my memory serves me correctly, some of the property owners around along Riverbank Road, including Marcy Littlefield, who donated the land, they've been refused entry into property on Riverbank Road.
I think we didn't want them to make connecting trails into the property, because on other properties we have, when that happens, the public starts using those trails and going on to private property. And we felt a responsibility to the neighbors, particularly along Riverbank Road with such small lots, that they should not have to worry about the public walking from our farm to trying to get to Riverbank Road and sometimes going to Footbridge Beach. That was an issue we did not want to have to monitor and handle. So actually that was worked out to protect the landowners along Riverbank Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for select board members? Select Member Daley. You are on mute.
Minor point, and now show stop for me, but on the Article 3, number 2, number 1, it says approximately 157 acres, which I'm fine with that. But when I did my research, it shows 149.7, 153, 157. It shows that the acres was changed back in 2014, I believe. So again, minor point for me, but I wonder if we should make sure the acreage is accurate before we vote on something.
Sure, I can explain that. It's 157 acres, of which 150 are in Ogunquit. 7 acres are in York.
Thank you.
And I think that's why Mary suggested the language approximate, so that you know, if when something changes between now and when the deed actually gets signed, we're in that range. Any other questions or comments from select board members? Select member Perry.
My only comment is I just want to thank everybody from the Great Works Land Trust that came in, did give a wonderful presentation on all of this last year. It was very thorough and it explained a lot, and we've learned a lot since then. And I really appreciate the ongoing communication. Regardless of COVID and everything else that's happened, I feel that a lot of information has been shared. And so I don't want the public to be misinformed that this is something that we're just now learning about. This has been something that's been in our lap for a little while now, and we're finally getting an opportunity to move forward with it. So just want to point that out.
Thank you, Select Member Perry. Jerry, do you and or your Budget Review Committee members want to add anything to the discussion?
I'll wait until last. I'll go ahead and ask the rest of the members if they have comments, questions.
Yeah, I guess, if I may, Jerry, my question is, we voted on this on the September the 3rd. Other than the language that Mary's put together, why are we reconsidering this as a Budget Review Committee today?
I will answer that, and that is, since you guys met, there have been further conversations around adding language that ensures that if the Great Works Land Trust goes defunct, that the land could revert back to the town of Ogunquit. So that's one of the new pieces of information that I believe was why I called Jerry and said I preferred you all to hear this information and have the opportunity to weigh in with that addition.
Anybody else from BRC? Any questions or comments?
No, I would just say I'm happy with the updated language and the easement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I had a quick question, and I just want to make sure that, since I've heard it from Tin, and he said it again, that we would have public access, including hunting and fishing. And I'm afraid that 100 years down the road or 50 years down the road, like when we look at the beach access, which includes hunting and fishing, if we only use the word recreational access or public access, that it doesn't keep something that some people may not want years down the road, but is important right now. So I just want to make sure that during this negotiation, we voted as a board, and we were pretty specific about the things that we felt important to be a part of this. And so by this new language, we're giving up that kind of statement and giving it to the select board to negotiate. I just want to reaffirm with you that it was important for the language that we developed to be a part. So in your negotiations, I would hope that you would respect our previous vote. And I'm certainly fine voting on the new language. That's fine. But do I have some type of that the negotiations will include hunting and fishing?
Certainly. I mean, I would like to answer that because we would prefer that it include hunting and fishing. You know, hunters and fisher people are one of our biggest supporters in our communities. And it's those contiguous properties that make their activities available. So we are very in favor of that. Of all the 75 properties we own, 74 of them are open to hunting and fishing. And the only one that's not was a bequest, and that was the bequest of the former landowner.
So my question was for the select board, if they would at least chime in on this. And I appreciate that, Tin, very much as well. But if I could get that, and I'll sign off for right now. Thank you.
So let's, select board members, if you can answer your thinking regarding Jerry's question, so he has a sense of where we're leaning at this point. Select member Dolliver.
I agree with Jerry because we just got this, the new Article 3. And if I look, if you bear with me a second, if I look at the capital improvement budget Article A, it, you know, contribution of 300,000, and it clearly says it in there. So we can all, you know, assume that it will be in there in the negotiations, but it would be nice if it's somewhere in stone. I mean, I think you could use Mary's and just put a semicolon and add what's in A right now. Provided that there is a contractual requirements that the land would be forever open to Ogunquit residents, public, for passive recreational activities such as hiking, plus hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, and similar activities. I think I get Jerry's point, is 50 years from now, you could have a select board that's deathly against fishing or hunting. And is it possible to change any negotiations? I don't know. I don't see why it would hurt to just put it in there now.
Mary, could we add that language to Article 3?
You could, of course. It's going to make it even longer, and you're likely going to leave out other things that matter to other people. The idea is that I correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear Jerry ask for that language. He was asking for a commitment of this board for when you negotiate that will be included. Now, Rick, to answer your question, this is the vote of the town meeting to authorize spending the money to donate for the property. And then the actual easement document is the most important document. The negotiation of that document is not going to take place behind closed doors. There's going to be a lot of meetings at the select board where people will again be able to weigh in about what they would like to see in that document, which is the conversation of fishing and hunting. I'm sure Jerry and others will remind you that that was part of this discussion and part of the reason. So while you can, and certainly if that's the pleasure of both boards to put that language in here, just remember that there are other things that are important to other people that may want to be in here. You may have something that in the negotiations somehow is a problem. I just hesitate to be too specific when you have still some broad discussions left to talk about an easement.
Like snowshoeing.
Thank you, Mary. So select member Dolliver, I think Jerry's question was, as select board members, are we going to sort of say to him today, yes, I will ensure that fishing and hunting are included as we negotiate any language down the road? And I believe you're saying yes.
Yes, it just may not be this select board that finalizes it. That's my point. It is possible. You know, there's an election in June. It's possible that it's a different select board. So yes, Jerry, I support it.
Select member Nguyen. If you want to unmute, we could hear you.
I absolutely support the language that was put in there. I just had a question about, oh God, I forgot what it was. Hang on. During the negotiations past this point, won't there be room and time in there? This is for Mary, I guess. Time in there, we will negotiate certain things in, and is there a time frame where we finally say if we're not able to negotiate these things, then we just say, look, we're out.
Correct.
Is that true? I mean, I'm hoping
That's
that's not the case. I agree with the language that's in there, but I think as it moves on, this is to get it on the warrant, and as to move on, we'll still have room for negotiation to put our best foot forward to negotiate what everybody would like to see out of this parcel.
Right.
But the hunting and fishing thing and all that, absolutely in on that.
And if I understand correctly, Tim, you all need to purchase this land before the end of the year. So if you want the town of Ogunquit's 300,000, then we'd have to come to settle any negotiations over the next couple months, assuming the voters approve this measure. Select Member Dolliver or Perry, would one of you like to answer Jerry's question? Okay, Select Member Daley, Jerry's asking for a commitment from us to guarantee that fishing and hunting and other recreational language be included in the easement moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to happen when the time comes. We've already had a commitment from 10 and 74 out of 75 properties have that. So I don't see any issue with that. I think we've already been given the commitment and I feel comfortable with that.
And that's something you'll support? Okay. Select Member Daley.
I agree, but I would like to keep it open-ended as was alluded to earlier, because how about snowshoeing, cross-country? There's other stuff that is popular now, may not be popular for 20 years. As long as we keep it somewhat open-ended, just outside activities that are popular, common, I don't know. But no, I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do too, Jerry, and it will certainly be a factor in any easement that I would vote yes on, that it would need to include language such as fishing and hunting.
Thank you. Can I ask, would there be a vote? Are we going to vote together? Or are we going to vote each one? Or are we going to go through the whole system? Can you give us an update of how we're going to get through this, Heath, if you don't mind?
I think what I'd like to do after our discussion is open it up for public comment, just to ensure that the public has heard our discussion. And if the public has any further input before we take a motion, then I believe the process is the select board votes, or you guys can vote and the select board votes, or vice versa. I'm open to either. Select Member Daley.
$300,000 is a lot of money, but no, this sounds like it's worth every penny. But I'd like to hear from Tim. I actually know a little bit of this, but I'd like to hear from Tim so the residents know, the voters know. Where's the other $800,000 coming from? Can Tim share a little bit more information on that?
Sure. We got an $860,000 grant from the Maine Natural Resource Conservation Program. And that's a state federal partnership that uses mitigation money. That's money that's contributed to a fund by entities, either governments, people, or corporations that need to destroy wetlands for projects, rather than the individual corporation having to mitigate that damage. They contribute to a fund, and that fund distributes those monies to where the damage occurred to mitigate it. And there's been a lot of construction and building down in southern Maine, and there's been a bit of money in the fund. And they were the ones that granted it because for that $860,000. That's a combination. That board is state government. It's Army Corps of Engineers. It's EPA on the federal level. It's U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they all make a decision on the grant. And this was the biggest grant they've ever awarded. So they saw the importance of this. They saw the need to help Great Works and the town accomplish this goal. And that's why it was fully supported on that level.
Thank you, Tim. Tom Sellers, I saw your hand raised.
Yes, Chairman Ouellette, if I could just recommend that as a process matter, I think it probably makes sense for the Budget Review Committee to vote first, since we are making a recommendation to the Select Board, and then for the Select Board to vote on the language.
That makes sense to me. Any other comments from the Budget Review Committee and or Select Board at this point? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up to if there are any additional public comments from the public, please use the raise your hand feature.
Bob Whitelaw.
Hi there, Bob Whitelaw. Can you hear me?
We can.
I live in Winter Hills Lane. My questions are for Mr. Smith. in full disclosure, two of my lots, one in which my home is on, abut this property. And I was wondering if you had ever sent out any notice that you were intending to purchase this and then convert from one zoning portion to another zoning portion. Is that standard operating procedure? Because I have not received any notice about this until probably the rest of you when it was just a few short weeks ago. So that's my first question. I have a couple others.
Ken, are you able to provide some insight?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we're not changing zoning at all. That's not what a land trust does. So we have nothing to do with zoning changes. This is simply a change in ownership. And we follow standard real estate rules and with the town. So there's not necessarily a notice to abutters when a piece of property gets transferred.
Okay, let me try it this way then. You're going to build trails. Do you have a trail project plan in place? So I know how close your trails are going to be to my land.
No, that comes, we will develop that once the land is acquired.
Do abutters have any say in that when you decide to build that plan?
Yes.
Okay, generally I'm in support as a resident. I'm only calling as a resident, so I'm in support, but I just needed to get those answers. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
Wendy, you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Wendy.
Okay, perfect. I am in
Wendy, and I apologize if I didn't do this with.
I'm sorry, Wendy Levine, Oaklands Lane, voter, taxpayer, homeowner, all that good stuff, year-round resident. I'm in 100% support of this for a million reasons, but I think that rather than getting bogged down on specifics about exactly what it's going to be used for, I think it's important to take note of what it will not be used for. So it will not be used to develop housing development. It will not be used to put more homes in our environmentally precious and sacred areas. It will put this land to amazing use, and it will never produce waste and toxins that will end up in the rivers and in the ocean. And I think that as a town, we are absolutely bound to do this whenever we can, to save whatever wetlands, to save whatever private whatever public lands we can. That's my opinion. I had a quick question. Nowhere have I heard about dogs. Will dogs be able to run through here? Just a lighter note. Thank you.
Great question, Wendy. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, I can answer that. Our dogs are allowed on our properties, and mostly it's a mix of some properties are leash only where there's a lot of use, and then some properties are off leash if for well-behaved dogs.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public, Tom?
No raised hands right now.
Okay. Jerry, I'll turn it over to you to do your thing.
Thank you. To do this again, we would like to see if there's a motion out there with the BRC to adopt the language as written and presented today.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Can I have a second? You're muted, Fred, but seconded by Fred?
Second. Yes, second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, point of order.
This is the BRC vote right now.
I think I know, but may I just 1 second?
Go ahead.
Well, Scotty wasn't on earlier and they moved Carol up to a voting member. Does that have to be changed?
Yeah, great point. And I noted that Scotty joined at 2:20.
Yep, I'm still on here. I had some trouble getting on. My apologies.
Jerry, you are muted.
I'm muted. Now I'm not muted, correct?
You're good.
Okay. So if I could continue on, Carol is going to vote on this because she was here at the beginning of the meeting. And that's by our bylaws. To answer your question, Lindsay. We have a motion by Tom, a second by Fred. Going down through the list, Carol Aaron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Fred Link, how do you vote?
Yes. Whoop. Yes.
Kate, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I am a yes, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and the Budget Review Committee. Select Board, do I have a motion to approve the language for the conservation land acquisition as read earlier this
So moved.
afternoon? I have a motion made by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Select Member Perry. Is there any further discussion? Select Member Daley.
Yes, does the language in Article 3, number 2, does that give enough meat to what we talked about as far as public use? It just says public use purposes. Are we okay with that open-ended, somewhat vague language, or do we want to elaborate as far as hunting, fishing, other recreational use?
Mary answered that question earlier, John, and her recommendation is that we not go down that road yet. That way we don't end up missing something, and that the language that will be put in the easements will happen down the road, and that will include the select board.
Thank you for the reminder. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. John Daly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick Dolliver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lindsay Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Robert Wynn, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I too am a yes vote. The motion passes 5-0. Tin, we talked earlier this week that you wanted those 5-0 votes and you got them. So congratulations. This will be put on the warrant article, which the select board is approving the warrant tomorrow evening.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 3.1A on our agenda is a discussion regarding LED streetlight conversion project. I had an opportunity to touch base with Mary Costigan, who was on vacation last week, but I don't know, early this afternoon or sometime this afternoon. And Mary, if I understand correctly, the question that I had put forward to Mary was, and had been discussing with the town manager, was whether or not this even needed to be put as a warrant article, as the town charter gives authority for approving contracts to the select board. So Mary, do you want to just share your opinion on whether or not the approval of a contract, a multi-year contract, would need to go before the voters?
So that specific question of a multi-year contract, the answer is it doesn't have to go to town meeting. But I guess I don't have a ton of information about where you are in the process of LED light replacement. Sounds like from our conversation that you're still pretty early on and haven't even determined a path. I don't know if that's correct or not. I know that in many of the towns that I've worked with, if they have gone with a third party, that it's financed through lease financing. And so with that lease financing, that typically involves a town meeting vote. Not because it's hard to explain. It doesn't like technically need to, but because it's a pretty big, can be seen as a pretty big commitment, it's recommended that a lease financing go, because you're not financing an actual, a truck or something that has some sort of value. You're lease financing into this entity to perform a project for you that you're hoping you're getting the right rate of return on. It's all going to pay for itself at the end. I know it's a complicated answer to your question, but I guess I need more information, and maybe you all need more information as actually where you are in this process. It seems like you're a little early for some of these, for the vote as written,
So
but I may be wrong.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that summary and that additional information. So the BRC did vote to not move this before the voters yet, because I believe, to summarize, there was an overall feeling that there were still a number of questions to be answered and additional information needed. And so before we spend too much time on this, I'd like to just get a sense from the select board as to where we're at, in the sense of, are we feeling the same thing, that before we're ready to really take a vote on this, we need more time and more information? Or are people ready to hear this afternoon from the town manager and the special project manager and take a vote? So with that, I'll go in alphabetical order. John Daly, where are you at? I.e., do you need more time, or do you think we're ready to move forward with the vote today?
Don't mean more time. I had the privilege of meeting with the project manager. In the first year of this project, it will cost the town not a single penny, and the payback is 5 to 7 years, and there's a payback there. It's a little longer than I'd like. I usually like a 3-year payback myself personally with projects. This is more like a 5 to 7 year payback, but the payback's there, and it will not cost us a penny the first year. I think one misconception is this is going to cost us 150,000. Whatever it costs us, 150. It's going to cost us 175, I think it is. It's not going to cost us that much. It's going to cost us that much over 5 years, but there's a payback every year. So it's not going to cost us money out of our pocket. There's a payback here. So I have enough information myself to make a vote, but I can appreciate that others may not. I have a lot of experience with LEDs. So thank you.
Thank you. Select Member Daly. Select Member Dolliver, where are you at?
I didn't have the chance to meet with anybody, and I don't think we got all the information in a timely manner. I wish, I'm a numbers guy. I wish I had all the numbers. I reached out to some people on my own, and I tried to formulate it the best I could. I will go, with the majority of the board here. I'm not super comfortable because I don't have my hands completely wrapped around it.
Thank you, Select Member Dolliver. Select Member Perry, where do you stand?
I'm ready to vote on this.
Okay. Select Member Nguyen, where do you stand?
I also gathered a bunch of information and talked to certain people, and I reiterate what John said. He's pretty much right on with his information, and I'm ready to vote.
Where I'm at is I have just still a ton more questions. So I asked how many people do this sort of leasing, how many companies do this sort of leasing. So when the town would go out to bid, that we'd have enough people to bid, and I'm told about 10 or 12 companies. I want to get that information verified. I also would like to give us time to get some feedback from other towns. Some towns have gone the CMP route, which, based off of the information that I've looked over, seems to would still save us money, but just not as much. And other towns have gone the lease route. I would like to get how has it worked? How are people satisfied, happy, etc. Those are some things that I just would like more time before we move this forward. The other thing that I'll remind the select board, and when I listened to the budget review committee, the biggest thing was the town manager had said she wanted to put forward only health and safety items. So while this potentially has some savings to us, this is not necessarily specifically a health and safety item. We have streetlights currently, etc. So those are my thoughts, but at the moment, it sounds like a majority of the select board would like to move forward, unless anyone has other thoughts. Okay, so hearing none, Pat, I would like to turn things over to you, and I'm not sure if Dave is going to be joining us or not, but let's move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the extent people have questions, Dave or I am more than happy to answer them. I would say just a couple of clarifiers. It's a catch-22. We can't move forward on doing something like this unless we know that we've got the support of the elected officials and the voters. So before we put a whole lot of time and energy into this and to be able to bring you other options, we need to know that there's some support in moving forward on this, number one. Number two, in my memo, certainly health and safety were the primary, but I also said anything that would create cost savings that made sense for the town to pursue now as opposed to waiting until June, I thought was worth bringing forward. These are always things that we should have a conversation about. And that's what we were trying to do with the BRC, which I think the BRC was very thoughtful in their questions and comments. And in terms of concern over which direction we would go, this is an authorization that allows us to do a lease agreement. It doesn't tie us into that necessarily. If after time and you got more information, you thought you wanted to go with the CMP option. My personal professional opinion is that people want to go with the option that is going to be the one that is going to create the most cost savings, the ones that are going to be the most reliable, and the ones that are going to bring value to our community, both in terms of savings as well as the environmental benefits of this. But to Select Board Member Daley's point, we looked at a 3-year lease option as well as a 5-year lease option. That would be something that we certainly could consider. We presented the 5 years because it gave us the savings right from the get-go, which we thought was very important. The savings are in fact generated every year. We're paying, just for people to remember, when the voters generously supported the budget that was presented in July, we budget almost $80,000 a year for our streetlights. With this model, whether it is with CMP or with a third-party vendor, we are going to save on the order, we're going to be saving on the order of over $50,000 a year. I think that this is something very important for people to understand. We have street lighting, there's no question. Is there a way for us to provide that street lighting in a safer, more environmentally friendly and cost-effective way? So the proposal itself, it was presented to the BRC in the packet that was published. It's in the packet that went out for all the voters to see. And if there are people who have questions about this, whether the BRC, the Select Board, or members of the public, we're happy to answer those. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pat. And to clarify, particularly for the BRC, as well as I think for the Select Board, there was lots of conversations that happened after the BRC meeting, which was some people thought we were asking the town to approve the 175 all up front. And this packet, this agenda has different language, which is really we're asking the town to approve that we enter into a lease agreement that is $175,000 over a 5-year period. Are there, Pat, would you like to add something?
I was just going to say, I wanted voters to understand the overall, the expense over the 5 years, for people to understand that there was certainly an expense, but there was also the return, so that we were going to see those savings over that same period as well to pay for it itself. But yes, the discussion that was had at the BRC made it look like it might be a $175,000 outlay, even though we said it would be a financed project.
Are there any questions, comments for Pat? Select Member Daley.
Pat, you can confirm this, but I know we had a recent election. Obviously, we have an election every year. So some new members who don't know what they don't know. But this LED project has been in the works for 18 months to 24 months. So it's unfortunate that the process doesn't allow for new people to get on board quickly. But this is not a new project. The fact that there's so many questions after 18 to 24 months kind of is sad, I guess. I guess we shouldn't have so many questions 24 months after the project started. But we do. So we have to acknowledge them. I'm not going to say that I don't want to be low the questions, but we have to answer these questions now, because if we can't answer them in 24 months, how are we going to answer them in 36 months? Thank you, Pat.
No, thank you, Select Board Member Daley. I think that it's a catch-22 in terms of staff needs to put a certain amount of effort into a project to be able to bring it forward. But we also need to be able to provide some room for people that have questions, or to be able to go a different route than you might want to go. This project, would probably not have been ready for prime time at the June election when we were getting ready. In the meantime, a number of things have changed, both at the PUC level as well as Central Maine Power, that make this a good time for us to do that. And so I usually provide far more time for the select board to think about things before we put something on the agenda. But again, when we decided not to have any capital projects last June, July, we were going to have one for this November. I thought it was important for people to at least have the choice. If this was something that you wanted to pursue, that we would give people that option. And then if you don't and you want more time to think about it, I understand that. I just would hope that we could answer your questions between now and the November election.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Pat. Select Member Dolliver.
Just so everybody's clear where I was. And yes, I came in new, but I was also on the board when we approved the LEDs on Shore Road. And quite frankly, that scope got changed. And nobody really knew about it, and we haven't finished that project. So I think this came up very quickly. And when I first heard it, I thought the completion of the Shore Road project was involved in this, but it isn't. So it's, yeah, it was a little confusing and it came up quick, and I just didn't think we had all the information we needed. And I'm still not sure I have all the information I need.
Any other questions, comments from select board members? Jerry, I'll turn it over to you and your committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to, before asking for comments, I want to ask two people who had questions during the last discussion at the BRC. And first, Fred, you were concerned because we had two options and neither of them were far enough down the road, you felt in your comments. And I just wondered if you had any change of heart hearing today from Pat.
Jerry, thanks for asking. I actually have had a change of heart. Not only a change of heart, I've got a lot more information by talking to the special projects manager about exactly how this would work. And let me just tell you how I approached this. I also said that I was concerned about some regulatory uncertainty. That's utility speak for saying the commission might have, the utility commission, the PUC might have to weigh in, Central Maine Power might have to weigh in. I'm an old utility guy. We guard the real estate, the poles and stuff that goes on it jealously. So I needed to know that this is something that Central Maine Power is behind, and I learned that it's been in their tariff probably since 2014. I had a lot of questions about how the energy is priced. Dave Riccio was able to tell me that we purchase energy from a third party and we're able to get a 15% discount on that piece of it. So I started with the CMP tariff. For me, a big thing was who can go on their poles and actually install these things and replace them if they get knocked down through a motor vehicle accident. Do we have to have a big line company come in and do it? And Dave told me that Central Maine Power's had a change of heart, which will allow a lot more people authorization to go on and do this work. They need to hold certain licenses. So I've gotten a lot more information over the last few days from that utility perspective to answer those questions. The uncertainty has to do with metering. At some point, we'll have, as I understand it, the functionality to meter these. And so rather than using a dusk to dawn algorithm that CMP comes up with, we'll actually be able to pay on consumption only. So but that's not baked into this process. Long-winded answer, I've changed my mind. The economics are there. We're gonna start saving money in year one. The payback looks pretty good. And I don't see any reason to wait now. And that's a change of heart. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Fred, and your expertise on this is great for the board, the BRC. I was concerned about technology in teaching and training people to use this metering that we were hearing about in the last meeting when we heard from Dave. And I was wondering if Pat could give us any information. Are we going to have to train a new person to be able to learn this technology? Is this creating another job?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, the technology has evolved so that you can have an app on your phone, and it's like a 20-minute tutorial on how to use it. In another town I was working in, the public works director had it, the police chief had it. The town manager, I did not have it. I could have if I wanted to, but there are limits. But yeah, it's not a heavy lift. It doesn't require new staffing. It just requires coordination. And
Thank you very much.
It's where technology has evolved.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm going to just call on Carol because she had some concerns regarding, we had asked all the other people, I say people, all the other heads of department to not come before us unless it was an emergency. And I just want to make sure that Carol brought this up, and I think it was explained by Pat that was also whether it was cost savings, not just an emergency. And Carol, can you tell us how you see the project now and your feelings?
I went back and I read the original BRC, and it is not as clear as what they have presented now. And I'm always with Fred when it comes to technology and his understanding of a project. So if we feel that this is going to save money and it's the right thing to do at this point, I would change my vote if I were voting.
And that brings me to, would we have a motion to go ahead and change with the new information? Do I have a motion from a member of the BRC?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Fred is seconded. Do we have any more discussion?
Gary, could I just ask one clarifying question?
Sure, Kate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just to confirm or clarify, the cost savings in year one will offset the initial investment. I know we talked about there being about $20,000 for fixtures. We will recoup that money next year in 21.
Yes, it's part of the 5-year financing.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else, Kate?
Nope, that's all.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, just this is the classic appearance of a no-brainer decision. The technology's there. It's going to cost us less this year and next year and in perpetuity if we do this project. So I think that it makes sense for us to reconsider it and to hopefully approve it this time around.
Thank you, Tom. One question regarding that: if the voters already gave out $80,000 for electricity, and we're having such a substantial savings, is there a reason why we're voting to add? Don't we already have the money there?
It's a multi-year commitment is the point I think that the town manager was trying to make, and to have the approval up front to make such a multi-year commitment, I think probably makes a lot of sense, given that we want to let the folks in town have a say in how we're managing this.
Thank you.
But it does provide annual savings, of about 26,000 or more per year, starting in this current fiscal year. So it's basically a case of we can pay more for electricity this year for our street lights, or we can pay less. So it really should be a simple bit of math to compare the two and decide whether we want to pay less or do we want to pay more.
Thank you, Tom. Pat, I was asking you, could you let us know, Tom said that it's because of the 3-year commitment. So if we did $80,000 a year for electricity for 3 years, we're not quite at the 175,000. Is that why we can't just let the town make this decision without it going to the voters?
Thank you. It's a combination. The way that in discussing this with bond counsel who works with Mary, we would be looking at taking the savings from the previously approved utility account to pay for this. We also are asking for use of the fund balance if that were necessary. But the reason directly for asking for the town meeting approval is not just because it's a multi-year contract, because as Mary pointed out, we do multi-year contracts all the time. This is because it's a multi-year lease, and it bumps up against being, even though we're not bonding it, that we're using our own previously generated revenues. It's just slightly enough different that we think it's important for town meeting vote to approve that kind of long-term lease. So,
thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor. We ready to vote? Any more discussion? Carol Aaron, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Fred Link, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Again, and I vote with the others, and it is 5-0 approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair DeHart. Select Board members, any further questions or discussion before I call for a motion? Pat, can you clarify, you said when you were answering Jerry that we may have to use some of our fund balance, and that's concerning for me. If I understand correctly, we have about $80,000 in 2021 budget. And the spreadsheet shows that in year one, we would be, well, the spreadsheet wasn't updated as I asked, but that's okay. My understanding in year one, the costs are, the system costs are $11,611. The third-party 5-year required payments are $37,532.95, and then I believe, not in year one, but in after year two, there's a budget of $7,500 for regular maintenance that would be added. So if I look at that, we're looking at about, my math is not exactly right, but $50,000. So if there's 80,000 and we're looking at 50,000, why would we have to use the fund balance?
it would be my sincere belief that we would not need to. But I also want to make sure that things happen in terms of how soon will we be able to go through getting the vote done, the contracts done, get this underway. So just got that built in there. I don't anticipate that we will need to use the fund balance, but I needed to put it out there.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question, Mary, more for you, I think, or Pat, feel free to chime in. If the town approves this and we're going down the path and we find out it's going to cost more money or there are glitches or things that we don't like, it's my understanding that it would be the select board who approves the final contract. So there is the option if the select board doesn't like how the negotiations have been going, et cetera, or if things change, like for instance, I'm not in favor of using our fund balance right now. And if that were to happen because things are costing more, although I feel like we have some provisions in here that says the maximum numbers. But Mayor, I guess my question is, it's the select board at the end of the day. If the town approves this, it's the select board. It would still need a select board vote to do the contract. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this warrant article talks about approving an LED street conversion project, which I'm not sure what that is. I haven't seen that document, but that's what this is approving. This is approving an LED street conversion project, and authorizing the board to enter into a lease purchase agreement to do that, to follow through on that project. And so that it's that agreement where there'll be some negotiation and involvement with the board.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up on that, I'm not anticipating higher costs. What I'm anticipating is, let's say we have two things that are very much on the horizon. One is we have a bitter winter and people cannot get out to do the work in an efficient manner as we would like. So I've built in that in case the project takes longer than we hope. The other is being very realistic that COVID-19 is expected to be with us throughout the following year, and that there may be adjustments that we have to do regarding that in terms of work schedules and so forth. So you pay me to be conservative and look at worst case scenarios. And so that's what I've tried to do in building this proposal.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Mary. Any further questions or comments from the select board before we call for a motion? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve putting forward the capital improvement budget articles as stated in 3.1B?
So moved.
So moved by Select Member Wynn. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
I have a second from Select Member Dolliver for discussion.
Sorry, just a quick comment. I've listened to everybody talk, and everybody seems to have a little bit of the pie that some other people don't have. And this person met with that person, and this person talked to that person. And it sure would be nice to support something when all the parties involved came in front of the select board and gave us everybody at once the correct and right information. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Select Member Dolliver. Any further discussion? Okay, I will call for the vote. John Daly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick Dolliver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lindsay Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bob Wynn, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I too am a yes vote. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Jerry, and I know there's a risk in saying this, I think the next items C, D, and E there are no changes. So if you want to continue on as a BRC committee and stay with us, then that's totally fine. But if you would like to make the decision that you're not needed, that's also fine. So just want to put that out there.
Do I have a motion from BRC to end our meeting with the select board?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second by Carol Aaron. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you, select
Thank
board,
you.
for having us today.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Jerry. And thank you, BRC members. Okay, so select board, I would like to just acknowledge the time. It's 3:30. We were really hoping to get this done in an hour or an hour and a half. So I'm hoping that we can move forward with C, D, and E, and actually the rest of the agenda rather quickly. Don't want to limit discussion, but just want to note that we're already an hour and a half in. And Select Member Dolliver had let us know that, he could only hang on for so long. So at some point he may need to drop off. All right. So with that, let's move on to 3.1C. The Fire EMS Department is requesting $78,000 for EMS equipment. Pat, would you just like to take a minute to remind us and the public of what this request is?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, the fire department has one EMS chest compressor, which is a piece of equipment that assists the EMTs when they're doing heart patients. The new protocols require them to stay with that patient and do chest compressions for far longer than has ever been required. And so this allows this equipment to help extend that period to resuscitate people. We have one on one of our ambulances. It would be helpful for us to have one on both ambulances. So this would be to provide the chest compressor on the other ambulance. So when they go to a call, they have all the equipment they need to be available to them. That is 18,000 requests for one unit. The cardiac heart monitors, we have two. Those are in the process of, we have been informed by the company of no longer being supported by the technology after January 1st. It won't end immediately at that point, but they need to give us notice that that may end. As a result, they are offering to replace the two units that we have basically at half cost, knowing that the technology upgrade is of their doing, not ours, and we probably would have had 2 more years of use. So these, again, are core pieces of equipment for us. There is a letter in your packet regarding this that was written by our medical services director who works with our fire department. They've improved the cardiac monitors themselves to be more versatile and serve different age groups from children to adults, which is beneficial as well. The thing I would want to make sure you're aware of, and the town attorney has given us appropriate wording for this, we are going to be applying for grants to be able to purchase this equipment. If for some reason we do not get the grants, we would hope we would have the authorization from the town meeting to acquire it. And the wording that Attorney Costigan has provided would make that clear, that grant funding comes first, but then if we don't get it, that there is authorization to use the fund balance to purchase these. Questions that I can answer?
Select Member Perry.
What's the timeline that we would know if we were to receive the grants?
The chair, as a matter of fact, asked that same question, and we're not positive, but because time is of the essence, because these would be considered out of service in January, the special projects manager is applying for them. I think we would know by December 1st.
May I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yes, you may.
So say we, I don't know if this is even possible, but so say we didn't receive the grants in enough time, we purchased, but then we were authorized a grant. Is that something that could happen?
Highly unlikely, but that's a great question. We're putting out a request for to the funder to say we want to be applying for these. They usually turn around within 4 to 6 weeks to let us know if there's a good chance of us getting it or not. So I think we would know frankly, by election day.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions for Pat? John Daly.
Not a question so much, Pat, but a comment. No, we never say no. The residents never say no to the fire department. It's unfortunate. I think we should question them more, but we don't. But we never say no to them. And I support these things, but I wish we would hear about them sooner than later. I mean, they don't discontinue old technology overnight. It just seems like sometimes we're surprised with their stuff, and I don't like being surprised. But again, I'm going to support this because we all support the fire department for everything they've asked for year after year. We don't ask a lot of questions, and that's just the way it is, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. If I might, Mr. Chair. Yes, I mean, we should always question all the department's requests for equipment. So I don't ever be shy about that. With respect to the monitors no longer being supported, we received notice of that in June. And it was a surprise to the chief. He came over to me very upset.
And Pat, just to follow up on that, because I know you and I had a conversation, the question was, when an entity says, hey, our technology is going to be running out or we're not going to be able to renew, you had said that you were doing some more follow-up with the chief to make sure, it's not, hey, we're not going to do this, starting in 5 years. It's really imminent in, within the next year, if I understand correctly. Can you clarify?
The notice that we received from the company was starting January 2021. Starting.
Thank you.
So it won't be like a cold turkey, but they've put us on notice, just like we're put on notice about other software upgrades and so forth.
Other questions? Pat, once a town approves, it's still, because it's over the $10,000 threshold, does it still not require select board approval?
The usually, well, I don't know. Usually when we issue contracts or purchases, we do bring them back. We brought back the chest compressor last time, as I recall.
That's what I remember too.
I think you'll see it for sure,
Thank you.
whether or not you're supposed to or not.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve the fire EMS department request for $78,000 for EMS equipment? And if I understand correctly, Pat, the way you're looking to have these awarded on the warrant article is they'd actually be there would be the 18,000 as one warrant article and the 58,000 as another warrant article. Is that correct?
That's correct. They'd be separate articles.
But for this purpose, I think we can take this vote together. So can I have a motion? Motion by Select Member Nguyen. Do I have a second?
Second with discussion.
Second for discussion by Select Member Perry.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to, we've gained him back, but we did lose a board member for a moment. I don't know if he'll be.
Thank you. Rick, are you there? All right. Did you hear the discussion or miss any parts of it?
No, I heard it all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? All right. I'll call for a roll call vote. John Daly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick Dolliver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lindsay Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Robert Nguyen, how do you vote? I need to hear you.
You were off mute before, Bob.
Can't hear you.
Yes.
All right. And I too am a yes vote. Motion passes 5-0. 3.1D, Police Department, request for $20,000 to purchase a used vehicle for the police chief. Pat, any new information since the last time we discussed this, both what was shared at our meeting a couple weeks ago, as well as the BRC meeting?
No, and the police chief is here if anyone does have questions.
Any questions or comments for Pat? Keeping in mind, we're trying to be mindful of timing. Select Member Daly.
I am mindful, but I also have to do my job. I'm not big in buying used equipment. I'm sorry, this is my thing, but it doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. Just it's my style. Why are we buying a used vehicle with potential issues? Why not buy a new vehicle for a little bit more? Or why not pay her to use her own vehicle for a year or so until we can figure this out? Why are we just jumping into a used vehicle?
Pat or Pat, would either one of you like to answer?
I believe the chief is going to answer that. She's unmuted, it looks like.
Well, because of the times that we're in and the constraints we have with monies, I just figured that the $20,000 would be better spent than $35,000 or $40,000 for a new car plus equipment. If I get a used Tahoe, I can take the equipment out of the 2011 Tahoe that's grounded right now and put it in the 2015. Everything will fit except for the rear strip of lights, blue lights in the rear, because the dimensions are a little off. So it's definitely a cost savings.
Good answer. Thank you. Good answer. Thank you.
Pat, I'll
Thank
follow up. So the new blue light strip, is that included in this 20,000 request?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you. Select Member Perry, I saw your hand up earlier.
I have no comment.
Okay. Select Member Nguyen. You're on mute.
How many miles are on the vehicle pad? I'm just curious.
On the 2015,
Yes. Well, then,
it's approximately 125,000. It's from the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Department. But the body and the underneath is pristine. And that's the thing with the small towns. it seems to be the rust in the body that go and not the engine. And the large cities and larger towns, it seems to be the opposite. So,
Is Pat, is the mechanic okay with that for you? I mean,
well, yes, I mean, I've discussed with this Jason, and he is going to look the vehicle over prior to purchasing.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Select Member Dolliver.
Just quick, I echo John. It's a used vehicle now with 125,000 miles, and I drive by the police station a lot, and there's always extra cars there. So in my brain, pay Pat to use her own vehicle to go to and from, because that was the big thing that I got from Pat, police chief, was she's on call 24/7. But it seems like there's always an extra car, one or two, in the lot. Not all of them are always gone, or use your own vehicle. But again, it just seems 125,000 miles on a 15.
Pat, can you just provide for us what your thoughts are on the, I believe that's what's been happening right now, since your current vehicle can't be inspected, is that the town is reimbursing you for your mileage. Can you share with us the thought of continuing on with that approach for a bit further?
Actually, I'm not getting compensated for the use of my personal vehicle, and that's fine. But the reason why I don't want to continue to do it, and the reason why I believe that I need a car to go to and from work, is sometimes when I drive to work, I'll hear a call or see something. I have no communication. I have no equipment in my personal vehicle. So I'm better off, obviously, if I have a vehicle with blue lights and communications in it. If I come upon a crash or just hear a call on the radio, I can respond, whether it's to or from work. But I can't do that in my personal car.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments for Chief Pat or Town Manager Pat? Great. Do I have a motion to approve putting forward to the voters for the police department $20,000 to purchase a used vehicle for the police chief?
So moved.
So moved by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion by Select Member Daley.
Can we dictate how many miles can be on the new vehicle? I don't want to buy a used one that has 60,000 miles. Half as much as we have now. Is that too, is that too nitpicking?
I can certainly look for something else. It's, I mean, nothing's etched in stone at this point, but I can try and find something with less mileage on it.
Okay, that's all I asked. It's less mileage, significantly less mileage. We're not doing this in 3 years. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll just Select Member Wynn.
If she looks for a vehicle with lesser miles, that's obviously we're approving a certain amount of money to go to the warrant. There may not be enough money that we are going to approve right now to go to the warrant to buy something that has that lesser mileage. I mean, so I'm kind of scratching my head trying to figure out where are we going with the vehicle she's chosen for, or are we having her look for something that has lesser mileage, but it's going to be more money? So we need to make sure we approve the right amount.
You can pitch in, Bob.
My retirement pension.
I'll go with what the majority thinks here. I think 125,000 on a used vehicle is a lot. That's a red flag for me. But that, Chief Pat, I trust you and our mechanic to make that decision. So whether it's that vehicle or another vehicle under $20,000, I think it's up to you guys if this gets passed by the voters.
Very good.
Chief Bernard, in your experience, if you had to be a guessing person with this vehicle that you've already chosen, what do you think would be the longevity in this particular vehicle? Have you been able to look at that? and compare it to other vehicles in the past?
I have not, but I can probably say it would last, I would say maybe 5 or 6 years. This mileage now, we have to understand, it is really more highway mileage than city mileage, which I don't know, mechanics say that's better.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's what they say.
Select member Wynn.
That's what I was going to ask you, Pat. I know in the past when we talk about police vehicles and things like that, and purchasing new ones, we've always talked about the mileage, and that's not necessarily the idle miles. So then you mentioned that it was more highway miles, but you could have 125,000 miles on the engine in the highway, but is there any, I mean, do they sit around with it idling? Is there idle mileage added to that? I'm just kind of looking out for the best interest, not only for you, but for the town, as far as the vehicle goes. I know you're
I'm
trying
sure.
to-
Yeah, I'm sure there is idle miles on it, and I can inquire. I don't know the answer to that at this time.
Right, but is that usually a significant thing when you go in to purchase a new police vehicle? Is the idea that there's a mileage on it, but there's also idle miles?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Thank
Because right
you.
now there's about 74,000 on the 2011. It has idle miles of 1711, which is a total of 42,775 just with the idle miles, because it's 25 to 30 miles to every idle mile.
Right.
And I
Okay.
used the 25 on that. So
All right, you opened up Pandora's box. How are idle miles calculated? Sorry, I'm going to ask now.
most of the new cars have the idle mileage. There's a button that you can check the idle miles on.
So that's
And
when the car is, sorry, just to clarify, that's when the car is on and running, but you're sitting there and or
correct.
it's
Yeah,
sitting there. Yeah.
running radar and things of that nature. And the manufacturers differ, but it's anywhere from 25 to 30 miles per idle mileage. So I had taken the lower, the 25.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions? I'll call for the vote. Select member Daley, how do you vote? You're on mute.
Yes, for convertible.
Select member
go
Dolliver,
back.
Select member
Yeah.
Dolliver, how do you vote? Select member Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Select member Wynn, how do you vote?
I'm going to go with yes. I think we tried a little bit, but I'm going with yes.
I said I'd go with the majority on this one, and so that makes me a yes. But anyhow, let's move it forward. 5-0. Now we're moving on to 3.1. The transfer station request is for $17,500. The request is for 2 roll-off containers of $14,000 and 1 waste container of $3,500, or to repair 1 waste container. The BRC approved $3,600. That is to repair the waste container, and they gave an extra $100 just because they felt like, let's not keep it so tight. They might need a little bit more to complete the project. Pat, any additional information since when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, as well as from what's in our packet?
Hopefully very briefly, Mr. Chair, the approval for the waste container repairs is essential according to the transfer station manager. If you do not approve the repairs to the roll-off containers, which we're asking, which was one of the options at $3,500 each, he just wants everyone to be aware that they will be a must-do in this coming year's budget for new roll-offs. To remind everybody, the transfer station opened in 2007. Everything was purchased at the same time. We have not replaced those roll-off containers over that period of time, where we should have replaced 2 at a time. Perhaps we have not done that. We have fortunately been able to use Public Works to be able to mend them as much as possible, but they are not able to be mended any longer. So that's why the request for the 2 new roll-off containers. John Fusco just wants to make sure that everyone knows if it's not approved for this November's warrant, it will be a must-do for June. And John may be on this call if you're interested. I'm not sure.
I know he was on earlier. It looks like he is still on. Okay, select board members, questions, comments, thoughts. I just want to note, it looks like select member Perry has stepped away.
Mr. Chair, just to mention, I just had a little discussion with them, and like Pat said, they have done a ton of maintenance on them, and you can only weld so much to rust. So I think it would be wise, since we haven't purchased anything since 2007. That department has done a great job over the since 2007 or so, keeping everything up to snuff. It's one of the nicest looking spots in town, even though it's a transfer station. They work really hard in keeping and maintaining the equipment there. So I'm good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other comments, questions, thoughts? Select member Daly. And I just want to note, it looks like Lindsay did come right back, and it looks like select member Wynn has stepped away for briefly.
This is a tough one because I respect the budget review committee and I take the recommendations, as I always have, to heart. And I know they don't recommend new ones, but I also talked to John, and John's proven over and over again, year after year over year, for a decade or more, that he's responsible. And if he thinks he needs two new ones, I don't want to spend $3,500 to fix one today to replace it in 1 or 2 or 3 years. I'd rather spend the money to get new ones today. So I prefer to go with getting 2 new ones, as John asked for, because John does not ask for something he does not need. He's proven that over and over again. Thank you.
John, are we really talking about 3 containers right now? 2 replacements and 1 repair?
Pat can try.
And for the repair,
Is that better? I thought it was 2 new ones, 1 new one and 1 repaired one. But Pat can speak to that. Maybe I'm wrong.
John's on, so I think he can answer.
Oh, okay.
And John, are we talking about 2 or 3? And so let's start there, and then I have a follow-up.
We're talking 3, 1 repair and 2 new.
Okay. And the 1 repair, once you repair it, what's your estimate of, never any guarantee, but how long you think that's going to work for?
The one we're repairing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the waste container. The other waste containers in great shape, should last, it's hard to guess, but over 5 years to 7 years, I would imagine. So if we repair that other one, again, you're repairing something, so it depends on how the repairs take. That's going to affect how long it lasts beyond the other one. So I would say 5 years in the minimum.
Thank you. Other questions?
The other 2 are, excuse me.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I would say the other 2 are offline right now. We cannot use them. They will not haul them. They're rusted to the point of being unusable. We had managed to keep on the rest of the containers, but those were the last 2 we were going to patch up. And so they became too degraded to use. That's why I'm asking for new ones, because even if we fix those, they will probably in 3 years be needing to be replaced anyhow.
Thank you, John. And if I understand from the town manager, if we don't move forward the replacements right now, you are saying you're going to need them. You'll need us to do this in June.
If those are extra boxes, so I mean, I had talked to the budget review committee about putting it off. It is possible to put it off because they are the extra boxes at this moment. But if we were to lose another one now, we'd be having to shift around the boxes that we need daily. So that's my concern there. And the other concern is I had asked where we're starting to see, again, this transfer station was built at once and it's having problems over the years at once. So we had gotten notice that we got to keep an eye on those compactors because there's going to be work needed on those. So my fear, if we don't start addressing these containers solidly, the work is going to start piling up on the other, into the future, more all at once.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? Select Member Perry.
My only comment is I just agree with John Daly in the sense that the transfer station has always been sort of our golden child on the budget and takes spending very seriously. And if I hear you say you need these items, I am absolutely all for this.
Thank you. Select Member Dolliver.
And I was agreeing with John until the other John just said they were extra boxes and he could wait until June. So that changed my mind.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, do I have a motion for approving? And whoever makes the motion, you'll need to clarify the amount that you're motioning for the transfer station.
Mr. Chair, if I might, are you splitting these up so we could start with the waste container, which the Budget Review Committee has approved at $3,600 perhaps?
Did the Budget Review Committee take up these individually?
They took them up together and they only approved the $3,600 for the waste container.
So we're going to take them up together and let's see who motions and how much they would like to motion for.
Yeah.
John Daly.
I motion that we approve 7,200 for 2 waste containers.
Okay, so John, before I call for a second, each waste container is 7,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought Pat said 3,600 each.
No, there's 7,000 for a total of 14,000, and then the repairs is somewhere between 35 and 3,600.
I rescind my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the transfer station containers, and please include the amount and which ones you're including in your motion? Select Member Perry.
I would like to make a motion to approve 17,500 for both roll-off containers and 1 waste container.
Repair.
Repair.
Can I add that word?
Yep.
Thank you. So, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Select Member Wynn. Any further discussion? I was planning on thinking, because I had heard that, the thought that this could wait a little bit longer, but after hearing John, and I agree, John Daly, that the transfer station does an amazing job, and I trust their input. And after hearing John Fusco talk about how there may be other things coming up because we're getting at that point where things are aging. Slow and steady spending is better than a whole chunk all at once. So I think I'm planning to vote in favor at this moment. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Call for a vote. John Daly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick Dolliver, how do you vote?
No.
Lindsay Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bob Wynn, how do you vote? I need to hear your vote, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. And I too am a yes vote. The motion passes 4-0. All right.
4-1.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you. The motion passes 4-1 with Select Member Dolliver dissenting. All right. Moving on to 3.2 on our agenda. This is the zoning and land use ordinance amendments. We had a full presentation by our code enforcement officer several weeks ago. Is there any discussion on A or B before I call for motions? Okay, I'll call. Do I have a motion to approve adding to our warrant article the floodplain management ordinance as proposed by the planning board?
So
and code
moved.
enforcement officer. So moved by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Select Member Wynn. Any further discussion? Select Member Daley, I'll call for a vote. Select Member Daley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Select Member Dolliver?
Yes.
Select Member Perry?
Did you hear me? I said yes.
Nope, thank you. Select Member Wynn?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. The motion passes 5-0. Do I have a motion to approve the subdivision regulations as proposed by the Planning Board and Code Enforcement Officer? To
So
put these on
moved.
the warrant article. So moved by Select Member Dolliver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Select Member Wynn. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I actually have a comment on this. I would have commented earlier, but I didn't know the vote was going to be in the languages as proposed, because I did have, Scott just sent these to me on Friday. So I just looked at them today for the first time, and I do have an edit to this ordinance. And that edit is there's a section in the fine language where it refers to recommended fines in the statute, and those are not recommended fines. Those are the fines, the minimum and maximum fines. So I've given Scott some proposed replacement language, because I do think I would not recommend that it be adopted as written. I would recommend that it be adopted as amended, to change recommended to pursuant to the fine set forth in the statute.
I'll rescind the motion.
Actually, I got to start with Mr. Wynn. Do you rescind your second?
I rescind my second.
All right.
I rescind my motion.
All right. Select Member Dolliver, would you like to make a new motion?
I'd like to make a new motion to what Mary said.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the subdivision regulations to go on the warrant article as proposed by the Planning Board and Code Enforcement Officer with the edit provided by our town attorney?
So moved.
So moved by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second? Second by Select Member Wynn. Any further discussion? My question is for Mary. Mary, do you feel like you've had enough time to really thoroughly review everything else?
Yes, I have. There
Okay.
there weren't a lot of edits, and I could thoroughly review them today. And I just found that one
Thank you.
as an issue.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. Select Member Daley.
Yes.
Select Member Dolliver.
Yes.
Select Member Perry.
Yes.
Select Member Wynn.
Yes.
And I too am a yes. The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to putting forth on the warrant article acceptance of a private way, Mariner Overlook. Pat, we haven't heard about this as a full board to my knowledge. So if you would like to give us an overview, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a road that is out of Route 1, adjacent to Mariner Hotel. And it's a subdivision that when it was approved by the planning board, the condition was they needed to build it to town standards. And after a majority of the houses have been built and occupied, that it would be ready for the town to accept it as a public road. The Public Works Director has looked at it, inspected it for its compliance with meeting our road standards, and recommends that we accept this.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that information. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Select Member Dolliver.
I have a problem with this just because it hasn't been in front of the board. We've done this before with private roads. It came in front of the board. There was discussion. The public got to talk about it. There was a big thing with private roads. And our zoning ordinance, Article 10, 10.6, let me read it. No street or way shall be laid out or accepted by town meeting until the planning board and road commissioner shall have made a careful investigation thereof and shall have reported to the Board of Selectmen their recommendations in writing with respect thereto. I don't know if any samples have been done. We don't know if they've drilled and tested. It's a straight shot with a cul-de-sac. There's a catch basin there. I know the town manager has said that Tom went down and looked at it and says it's in great shape, but other than, and I did this when I was on the board before. You know, other than a few houses on that private, you know, on this road, what's the benefit for the taxpayers in the town of Ogunquit? And I just don't think we're abiding by Article 10, 10.6 of the zoning ordinance by pushing it too fast. I just don't think the board has the correct information.
Thank you, Select Member Dolliver. Select Member Daly, you had your hand raised earlier.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Lindsay. I'll be quick. Yeah, I'm a little concerned because it's probably perfectly fine. I'm sure the town did their homework. Hopefully they did, but I believe they did. But private roads have been very contentious over the last 10, 15, 12 years. From what my estimates, up to 40 to 50% of the roads in town are private dirt roads that are not plowed, are not maintained, don't have city sewage, don't have city water. So people, and they have to plow themselves. So people on private roads are very, very concerned that whenever a road gets accepted, they have to help pay taxes for it to plow and maintain when their own road is not plowed and maintained. So, you know, maybe all the work was done. I need more evidence. I need more feedback from residents in town if they support this or not. This is the first time it's on the agenda, like Rick said. And I would like to hear back from other people before I bless something like this. You know, it seems small. It comes to home to a lot of people. Thank you.
I understand.
I'll also add that I would like to hear from the people who live on the street who are putting forth this request. That's my thought. Select Member Perry, do you have a question, comment, thought?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just with what Board Member Dolliver just said and piggybacked by John Daly. I mean, I unless Pat can guide us otherwise, I also don't feel super comfortable with this.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts at this point?
Just
Like Member Wynn.
A question possibly, well, John and Rick were there at the time, and question for Pat. I know that at one point in time, we did go to the voters or had incredible amounts of discussion on this, and we had some criteria through the code office where they went around and looked at the roads if you met this criteria, or in fact, there was one, I don't know if it's Deers Run or whatever it was, they literally had to fix the road to actually match the criteria so that the town would plow. This road is, I know the road, has the correct width, it has the correct, everything that would be on that list. We've already approved that list prior to and went through roads that didn't make the cut and some that did, and this one definitely makes the cut. So I'm going to vote in that direction. I know that the people that live there, they're, I don't know how many year-round residents that live down there. So, and the road is fairly new. It's not an old road.
Thank you, Select Member Wynn. Select Member Dolliver, do you have anything else to add to the discussion?
Just quickly, I think we already plow the road. So plowing's not an issue. I'm just wondering, Bobby just said it meets all the criteria and everything. I'm not sure how we know that. We don't have any information to show it. And zoning ordinance Article 10, 10.6 requires it to go to the planning board and the road commissioner. So and the select would be notified in writing. So that's all I'm looking for.
Thank you, Select Member Dolliver. So at this point, I am going to move and ask for a motion that we table this from consideration at this time due to what our ordinance says. Do I have a motion to table 3.3 on our agenda till a later time? So moved by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second? Second.
Second for discussion.
A second for the discussion by Select Member Perry.
Can we
discussion?
Timeline on later time? Like, could we come back? How soon is this something that we can come back to?
It sounds to me like the steps, according to our ordinance, is this needs to go before the planning board, and I don't know what that process would look like.
Like Pat has something to say.
Yeah, the public works director and have an affidavit petition from the residents, which we do have. So you need more information. I understand that, which we can provide fairly easily.
That's all I had for discussion.
Select Member Wynn.
I'm still on the when we went through this process before, there was something that was put forward by the town manager. And if I recall, the code officer was part of that decision-making on whether, they met the regulations, or I don't know if it was voted on by the town, or if it was just something the board said, okay, this is what we want, but it was a whole deal that we went through. Is that still available? Maybe I should go back and look at some of the meetings. I don't know, but
No, there is a process to do this. It goes through, it was a subdivision approved by the planning board, which was their involvement. Once the road gets built to the specifications, the owner of the subdivision has to show that it does meet that, which we have that information from the owner, and the property owners have to sign a petition asking for it to be taken over, which we have received. What you don't have is that you don't have that in your packet, which I understand.
Select Member Dolliver, did you have a comment?
Just quickly, as I stated, I believe we plow this road. So pushing it till the June ballot is not a big deal. Once we get all the information and make sure Article 10 is abided by, I mean, we're gonna plow it and maintain it as we have been. And then if everything's good and it works out in June, we put it on the ballot.
Yeah, I think the question there is, if something goes wrong between now and June, then they would be responsible for fixing it before we would then approve it. So
Absolutely.
any further discussion before I call for a vote?
I just want a question for Pat. They are plowing this road now, the town?
I do not believe we have been,
No,
but
I didn't think
I
so.
will check.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that question. Bob,
Yep.
Any further comments? So the motion on the table is to table 3.3. Select Member Daley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Select Member Dolliver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Select Member Perry, how do you vote?
Yes to table.
Select Member Wynn, how do you vote?
No.
And I am a yes vote. The motion passes 4-1 with Select Member Wynn dissenting. All right, moving on to 3.4, we have a citizen's petition. This is regarding the Great Works Regional Land Trust and raising and appropriating $300,000 so that the Great Works Regional Land Trust can purchase the land. As we all know, we've approved this to go before the voters with our own language. Before we begin discussion, we have asked our town attorney to some questions. This would end up being a competing item on our warrant article has different language, as well as there's the petition says to raise the funds. So we asked her some thoughts around that. So Mary, do you want to just kick us off with your perspective?
Sure. Yep. So very, very like 10,000 foot view is you get a petition and there are enough signatures, you don't have a lot of leeway to not put it on a warrant. However, there are some circumstances that allow you under the statute to reasonably, well, there's no circumstances listed under the statute, but the statute does allow you to reasonably refuse to put a signed petition, submit a petition on a warrant. What those circumstances are, nobody knows the full extent of those. We have some examples because they've gone to court and that's the only way we know. So we can just use our best judgment, and it's still your decision as to whether or not you think you can or want to not put this on the warrant and have that be a reasonable choice of yours not to do so. And so some information I have for you is, if this were an open town meeting, you'd be able to have both on there, one in front of the other, and have an open discussion about, and put yours first and have an open discussion and then not consider the second question. And you could have these competing measures and explain what the difference is. And so people will know if they want to vote for one, they just won't vote for the other, and it works. But when you have a secret ballot, you can't do that. nor do you have the authority to put competing measures and ask someone to vote for one or the other. You put them both on, and you have a problem if both are yes, or they get to the other one first and they vote yes, and then they get to yours and go, oh, wait a second, I don't get this. So that's some background there. So it's problematic to have them both on. It won't be clear, and you'd have a potentially an odd outcome. The other issue that they may not realize is their language talks about raising and appropriating money, and you raise money in the annual town meeting. So you couldn't raise and appropriate for a donation that's going to occur in the next couple of months. You could raise and appropriate money that's for a donation that's going to happen a year from now, but not in the next couple of months. So that their language is problematic in that sense. So those are the issues that I see, but it's your decision as to whether you want to still put this on the warrant or not. And again, the only guidance you have in statute is that you can reasonably refuse. The other thing I will add is that once you have a petition in front of you, once someone has submitted a petition for verification, they cannot withdraw it. Because as soon as somebody signs it, their expectation is that's going to be submitted. There's not a lot of time between now and tomorrow, but one option is to have all 17 people who signed the petition to sign an affidavit saying that they agree to not have it on the warrant. But there's not a lot of time for that.
Yeah, Marion, I think and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a lot more than 17 people who signed the petition.
Oh, I just saw the copy I saw had 17.
Yeah, I think that might have been one page out of several pages.
Oh, okay.
That were submitted. I also spent some time thinking through this, and section 206 of our town charter that addresses warrant articles by petition. It says the articles may be inserted into the warrant of an annual or special town meeting. It does say if the petition calls for an illegal act, the select board may refuse to put it on the warrant. And then it goes on, if the select board unreasonably refuses to place it, the petitioner may seek relief through a notary public. So just want to put those thoughts to the board. Any questions or comments in particular for Mary about how we move forward? Select Member Dolliver.
Mary, do you think it would be reasonable for this board not, well, I mean, since we've already agreed to this warrant article, would it be reasonable in a legal standpoint in your mind that we do not put this on the basis that it would confuse the voters or possibly confuse the voters?
So I think that the confusion issue, the fact that you're putting forward your own measure that has the same result, and the fact that their language calls for raising money when they probably didn't understand the consequence of that language, I think those are legally defensible justifications for reasonably refusing to put something on the ballot.
My biggest concern is if we move it forward on the ballot with the other one and they both get yesed, then how do we figure out which one? And time is of the essence, particularly for the land trust to move forward. And that's my biggest thing, in addition to the things that you said. But we'd have to wait till June or call for another special town meeting to determine which one to move forward.
I think both have the same desired outcome, and putting both on could result in that desired outcome not happening.
Mr. Chair, one more statement if I could before somebody made a motion. I was a little disappointed in the petition for the simple fact that some of the dates were 8/31, and we as a select board didn't get this in front of us until September 1st. I know the past board had a presentation, I understand it, but we as a board didn't have it in front of us until September 1st, and somebody already started a citizen's petition ahead of us even discussing it. So I'm not sure we want to go down the route of running the town on citizens petitions, but at least grant your elected officials the opportunity to discuss it and possibly vote on it before we talk about a citizens petition. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Select Member Dolliver. Any other comments, thoughts, or discussion? Select Member Daly.
I agree with Rick, but also our number one goal is to make sure the residents know what they're voting on. And I think this is too confusing to vote on the ballot. And I prefer that what we're putting forward, since like Mary said, both articles are going for the same ends. We have the same ends in mean. I don't think we disagree with where we want to go. So I'd rather not confuse the voters. That's not my number one thing. I do not want to confuse the voters. We've done it in the past, at least once, maybe twice, I think. I've done it with Bob Wynn, not on purpose, but we've been involved. And it doesn't work to confuse the voters. It does not work. It never comes out well. So I prefer just to put ours forward because they both come out with the same ends. Thank you.
Thank you, Select Member Daly. Select Member Perry.
I think I just want to add that I think it's beyond just confusing the voters. It's that the original petition, I think, was probably put in place as a safety net in the event that we were not on board with this. And the fact of the matter is if the citizens' petition actually moved forward, it would not benefit them as well as possibly what we all just agreed on. We were more clear and concise on how the monies are used and where they're coming from, and this actually gets them to their end game more. I think this citizens petition was really put in place as more of a plea for us to please see how important this is to us, and that's the way that I look at this. And I don't think that there would be any hard feelings, in my opinion, if we did not move forward with the citizens petition, because we're recognizing that could be the downfall there when we are all seemingly right now on board with how this works. So I think that it goes beyond just confusion of voters and more, this is us hearing them and helping them to get to where they want with their concerns.
To that point, Select Member Perry, I'll add that several people have talked to me about this, and I've said the same thing, that I don't begrudge the petitions for the citizens for moving forward with the petition, because time is of the essence, as we know, when it comes to this. And due to us only discussing this the last couple of weeks, again, I know it was discussed last winter, but it coming back before us the last couple of weeks, citizens could have thought that they didn't know how we felt about it. They could have thought we might have voted it down, and due to the timing of needing the money and moving forward by the end of the year, I don't begrudge those citizens from moving it forward. Although I have my own thoughts around, we particularly I like how we worded ours, where we're clarifying that we're going to use the $75,000, the money that we put away for these purposes, versus this doesn't use that. But at the end of the day, that's not why I'm going to vote for or against putting this on the position. I'm going to vote based off of what Mary has shared with us, that the concerns are the competing things, as well as the raising of funds, which is something that we do at our annual meeting. Select Member Wynn.
Starting to think I'm invisible, but here I am. I agree with absolutely what Lindsay said. That's almost verbatim what I would have said, except for the fact that I believe that we should never discount any citizens petition. In this situation, I think, as John reiterated too, we've been through this already before, and the situation worked out well. But whenever citizens put forward a petition, for me, I don't think it ever should be disregarded. But in this situation, I'm going to, whatever, what Lindsay had said, perfect, dead on. I agree. I think the people were a little worried and nervous that it wouldn't go forward.
Bob, I've lost your audio. I don't know if it's just me.
You heard it?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, I'm going to absolutely go with, the the situation that we have voted on as a board. But again, I reiterate, we should never discount any citizens petition to go forward. But in this situation, this is a catch-22, really. And I think the better one should go forward.
I'll also add to that and my comments that I was saying earlier. I think one thing that's unclear to citizens, to our committees, is when should they be submitting stuff to us for consideration on our ballots. And I think it would be helpful to all of us, to the town manager, to citizens, that we set forth a process for these are the deadline dates, so that things aren't being put before us 2 weeks before, and that we can plan around that. So personally, I want to look forward to us setting some policies and procedures around this. I think this has certainly been an odd year because of COVID, but I think it's really hard for us. It was hard on the Budget Review Committee to get things and only have limited time to really discuss them and look into them. And I think it would be fairer for everyone, including us, citizens, our committees, for us to come up with, yeah, here's our expectation that if you want something considered on the warrant article, get it to us 2 months in advance, those kind of things, so that we set, here are the parameters moving forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Select Member Wynn.
I think that would be very difficult to do if some of the situations that arise may possibly not be 2 months in advance. It could be 2 weeks before they had to have the deadline to get it onto the warrant. That's going to be a very difficult situation to do, to be able to pick and choose and give them a date when maybe an issue comes up before it needs to be on the warrant, that they have different groups select board, which I think that's what a petition is all about anyway, is being able to.
I think you're misunderstanding me, Bob. I'm not saying petitions. I'm saying for other items, so that citizens would know, yeah, the select board has taken this up and here's their position on it, and give citizens enough time to move forward. So those would be things that we'd discuss later down the road. So, Select Member Daley.
I think Lindsay said it very well, so I don't repeat what she said, but listen to what she said. And I do agree with Bob to some extent, but Heath, one thing you should have touched upon, I just want to be more blunt, is the fact that the Conservation Commission is who's behind putting this citizen petition out is a little bit concerned. I think they should, we meet every 2 weeks. We've been meeting every week lately, the last 6 weeks, but we meet every 2 weeks. So to Bob's point, if they felt the need to put it on, they should have, I wish they had scheduled a meeting with us and talk to us about why they feel the need to do it. Keep us included. They work for us. They work for us. And the fact that they didn't come to us before they said petition is a little bit, I'd like to know why. Like, what did we do wrong? What did the previous board do wrong that we sent a message to the committees? Don't approach us if you have something you want to do and you don't care or want our support. They should care and want our support. In this case, they send a message they don't care and want our support. So I like to talk to them about that face to face.
Yeah, and we'll certainly have an opportunity when we meet with them, but I want to clarify that my understanding is the petition has not been put forward by our Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission met. We have a letter in our packet saying that they had a 6-0 vote. The letter's dated August 28th. So I think while there's a citizen who is also sits on the commission who is part of the circulation, my understanding is the petition itself is not an effort of our Conservation Commission.
Thank you. I did not know that.
Can we move along?
Yes. So I would like to call for a motion that we not move forward the citizens petition due to the reasons that our town attorney has shared with us, in particular the competing factors, as well as that the petition asks us to raise money, and we don't raise money at this time of, we only raise money when it comes to our annual meeting in June.
So moved.
I have a motion made by Select Member Dolliver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second made by Select Member Wynn. Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. John Daly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick Dolliver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lindsay Perry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bob Wynn, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I too am a yes vote. The motion passes 5-0. Is there any further items needed for discussion of this special select board meeting, which included the budget review committee at the beginning?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion on the table to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second, going running. See ya.
I have a second by Select Member Wynn. Select Member Daley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Select Member Dolliver.
Yes.
Select Member Perry. Select Member Wynn.
Yes.
And I too am a yes vote. Motion passes 5-0. We'll see you all